Well, this is Pops, and it's sometimes difficult to not be out over our skis, meaning you really like a show, but you're not focusing on its flaws, or you don't like a show and you're not focusing on any of the positives. And I think Reacher is one of those shows where I have really enjoyed it, but I'm not trying to completely ignore, and I guess maybe I've not spent enough time discussing the show's shortcomings. Well, in this episode reaction, episode 6, you're going to get a lot more of that because I think this is probably one of my least favorite episodes of the season where I felt the story kind of plods along and is also rushed. It's just a strange feeling that I had. And one of the problems that I have with evaluating the show is I know the first part of the show was trying to be pretty close to some source material, and the show itself has been significantly more aligned with source material than, let's say, obviously the Tom Cruise films were. Now, with that said, season 1 is significantly more interesting. It's more about Reacher and significantly less about the secondary characters. And in this one, the other characters have different things that are going on. I will say in this episode, all of that is in the background. Like it all fades away. This is almost an entirely an episode focused just on the investigation. So, but after a brief recap, and by the way, the recap does at least allude to one of the scenes here, which is one of this scenes that a lot of people have problems with because the girls hold their own against these biker guys, right? And I want to say this. In this scene, Reacher takes on 3, 4, 5 people. The women have one guy. And in the following episode, they both talk about how they're hurt, they're bruised, they're whatever. Now, I admit, they're not showed with a lot of injuries. Maybe they couldn't hold their own. It's not done at the detriment of the men. So I don't consider this a woke flaw that some people do. To each their own. I'm not trying to get into some of the plot points about some of the things, but I'll try to do that in this episode. So, the investigation continues. It's a lot of talking and sort of like chasing one clue, chasing another clue, those kinds of things. And it doesn't showcase anything that's really that new and interesting at this point. I do say it's pretty good that they've almost waited too long, but they've done a good job here, as you can see him buying clothes, of reminding you of that vagabond mindset, that he has a problem of settling in roots. He has a problem with this concept of materialism and those kinds of things. He has to be this free spirit. So I like the fact that we have a little nod to that without spinning our wheels in it. We don't have to have a big drama about it. There's a joke about her paying for everything. That's kind of been an ongoing joke through the whole show before we cut to this guy. So he is our sort of like our phantom bad guy. He's our terrorist, this like cloak and dagger guy. He's the guy that's secretly running, going around killing people. He's behind all of these kinds of things operationally. And again, we keep it out there. We put a finger on it. We talk about it. We move it forward, but then we don't get stuck in it. So that's what all that is. And then of course you have this makeout session before you get to this cop. Now, the cop this is his episode, right? So this episode is really about the cop because this is his are you a moral guy or not scene, right? So you have corrupt cop versus non-corrupt cop, how that kind of gets bubbled to the surface. Only 2 of us knew where Reacher's team would be. I didn't narc, you did. I know you're dirty. What's going on? And he does this sort of like pretty good villain speech of the ends justify the means. Like it doesn't matter that I'm taking a whole bunch of money. It doesn't matter that I'm working with a whole bunch of corrupt people and corrupt politicians, whatever. I believe that the mission is good, so therefore all of this illegal and dangerous stuff, even if it's even if it's hurting people in harm's way, it's all worth it. It's all worth it. So this is very much a very interesting take. And I have to be honest, I love this very much because this is sort of like political drama that reminds me of real life. This is almost like trying to push back against people who have sort of an Iraq war mentality about what our role should be overseas or not, particularly in the Middle East right now, where it's a very contentious situation. What is our role or not? Like there's this pushback about ends versus means and corruption or not, and who's spending money and who's giving arms and all that. That is a large part. And I really like this element to this episode because at the end of the day, it's about this character and his morality and him doing the right thing and what his reputation and legacy would be. Hero's journey, story arc, however you want to look at it, it was really good stuff. Cut back to the team, blah, 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 flashback, blah, blah, blah. It's fine. Everyone's on to the next hunt. Well, the next hunt takes us to where a girl that got away. So it's a little hard to care about the character and her daughter because they were just another fleeting character in the middle of an investigation. I really didn't even know her name or who we're talking about, but I was okay with going along with it. But it basically is she becomes, so the daughter becomes, so this is the setup for where is this lady? Her daughter becomes the purse puppy, the important character. But let me get to this scene. This was the worst scene probably of the show to date because this woman just does an exposition dump about what actually is going on. So for whether you have watched the show or not, you could actually start with this episode. Watch this. She is now going to explain to you what everyone's role at the business is, who's doing what, who's pulling what strings, why, how she fits in it. What I don't like is they all go, oh, okay, that makes sense. And they're okay with her. Like she's not like this hard, fast criminal. It's like everything just sort of checks out because she says so. She does a phone call, the typical, this is her laying out all of the stories. And then there's this quick scene with her basically talking to the big bad, Robert Patrick, Langston. And she's basically, I just gave him a whole bunch of information, but obviously I was lying. I was scared. Blah, blah. That actually could have been 100% proof because they have done nothing to really validate her. Like on paper, she got them in harm's way. The fact that this is sort of like so easily glossed over and we move past it so quickly is one of the biggest shortcomings of this show to date. Like this was really, really, really soft. And it really just kind of falls into the vein of a generic crime story. I don't know what came first, the book or whatever, but reality is this has been done a million times and it was very, very, very weak anyway. All right, so he goes to the cop and he's basically unloading the girl on him. They need somebody to watch the girl. She's the purse puppy. Here's the setup scene, which turns sideways, right? Because they see that so let me go back to the cop. So the cop and the girl are being followed and shot at. They're on the phone. They realize that it's a setup, and then it comes a shootout. So we end up with two different shootouts, two different situations that are happening. One with the mom, who's the bait, to get Langston and them there so they can, quote, kill him. I love the fact that there's sort of like a disregard of actual justice in this show now. Suddenly it isn't about, like, let's actually get them. Let's pull the curtain back on all the corruption and this horrible thing. It's more about just murdering them. We don't even know if their friend Swan is actually alive or not. There's still this back and forth about it. We're on episode 6, but long gone is the concept of we're going to try to do what's right or justice. It's more about just killing them. Anyway, chase sequences, shootouts, Reacher taking on, I believe, 3 or 4 guys. It was okay. It was fine. It's obviously massive amounts of plot armor, massive amounts of conveniences of being at the right place, the right time. Had the person step 2 feet left, 2 feet right, or go in the busway. I don't want to get hung up on the nitpicking, but that is what I think some people have done with this show is they will hang their hat on 3 or 4 problems and they can't let it go. And then for the baby's thrown out with the bathwater. At the reverse, I don't want to say that this show isn't without those type of conveniences and plot devices and things like that. But I find this show to be pretty entertaining and it's okay. And he is the main character of his show. It does center around him. He does all that. It's the secondary story with the daughter and the cop. So they give him basically like this, sacrificial story arc. The good cop being good, put himself in harm's way to save one last innocent life, happens to be a child. It was it was very on the nose. You knew exactly what was coming, but you actually felt okay with it. And again, the cliche that's been done a million times since, I believe, Fatal Attraction, right? May have been Fatal Attraction. Final Destination was probably the first one that did that. Anyway, first one I remember for sure. I think Meet Joe Black has something similar, but and then it's, he gave his life, that kind of thing, and it's kind of where we wrap up basically. So overall, it's still way better TV than almost everything else. I hate to say it, but when you talk about everything that comes out of the Disney Marvel Mouse House type stuff, when you look at hit and miss stuff that is on Paramount, Peacock, WB, and even Netflix, this show stands up to be very, very solid. So even if, as this is a sort of weaker episode, it does still move things along. It just kind of draws out the plot. Things are going to take a little longer to wrap up. This could have been a finale. We easily could have gotten to a close with this episode, but now we still have more. We ended up just moving, and I don't know that we really resolved anything. We just kind of moved in the journey, and that's kind of where we're at. So that's my take on it. I don't know. You guys keep me posted on what you think, because I really do enjoy the negative comments too. I know some people won't believe me on that, but I enjoy the back and forth, because some people actually have been very transparent about what they don't like, which is fine. If you don't like it and you can explain, I can agree and disagree. And I will say, I see their points, but we're disagreeing over the amount of impact to the show versus how I feel about the show. That's pretty much it. So anyway, that's my take on it. I love hearing from you guys. Take care, everybody. I am Pops.
Yeah. Right?